It's crazy how many people are so vocal with their objections to homeschool. And I thought it would be fun just to chit chat about it. My youngest son is getting ready. Actually, I can see him getting in the car to take his driving test exam. So I have a few minutes to sit here and chit chat. What's the big deal about people choosing to homeschool, and why does it create such animosity from people that are pro public school? I want to start right from the beginning and say I'm not against public school. I'm not against charter schools. I'm not against tutors, private schools, homeschool. What works for your child to raise them up in the way they should go and to educate them properly so that they can not only live but thrive, and as a future adult provide for themselves and their family, do that, whatever that takes, and do it to the best of your ability and the best of, and taking advantage of the best opportunities around you. So why are people so freaked out that homeschool might be the best thing that is offered for other people's children? Now, if you're a homeschool skeptic and all you're here is just to look for something negative to say and to tear down people that don't think the same way, I'm going to encourage you to go look up one of the other 114 million YouTube videos out there and just have a great day, have a great life. If you're curious about homeschool and you're confused, and you're wondering why is it that people choose this kind of a life, or you're stepping into homeschool, that's what I wanted to talk about, because the homeschool life is not a cookie cutter life. You can't just start in kindergarten and finish these 17 things and then move to first grade and eventually graduate. Instead, homeschoolers look, instead of a grade or an age, they look at the child. What is it that the child needs help developing or pursuing? What kinds of things would you categorize as a weakness versus what kinds of things would you categorize as a strength? And then a typical homeschool family will take that in mind and then sprinkle educational and life skill type activities around that allow that child to nurture and grow and develop into the best possible human/adult that they can over the course of time. And the beauty of homeschool is that you can strip out the busy work. You can strip out the useless things that don't apply to your child, to your family. And I say useless with a grain of salt, because what's useless to me and my family may be extremely valuable to you. Our family did have our kids take things like standardized tests every once in a while, but we also opted out of them most of the time. We didn't do a lot of worksheets and fill in the blanks and curriculums where we followed all of the instructions. We did a lot of passion projects and talent-led projects. We did a lot of exploration, a lot of conversation, a lot of reading, and projects along the way. And what we found is that when we leaned into teaching our kids in the way that they learn, either auditory, there goes my son in the background, auditory lessons or visual lessons or project-led learning, each of the kids thrived in their own season, in their own way, and they grew up to be amazing people. Now, would they have been amazing people had they gone to a public school? I think so, but I also think that when I look at my children, I can see that public school would have stifled their love of learning. And the reason I say that is one of our kids, our oldest, actually did some of his schooling through public school. Because I've said it again. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you need 6 months with your kids in public school, do it. If you need to take a 12-month break and not do anything academic, do it. If you need to hire tutors or go to classes, you do you. You do what's best for you and your kids. What I watched with my son when he was in public school classes, and this was in high school, was that the teachers were so interested in checking off the boxes that they were teaching the concepts that they weren't seeing the kids and tailoring those lessons to fit that child. This would be like having to go to a restaurant where you eat meals and have zero choice. You don't get to choose how spicy the food is. You don't get to choose whether or not this entree goes with this beverage. You don't get to choose what salad dressing goes on your salad. You just have to eat whatever is served by whoever serves you. So if the waitress or waiter is a snotty waitress or waiter, if the maitre d' is obnoxious and cruel, if you have to sit in places that are really loud and you can't even hear people talk, then you would have to agree that that would not be an enjoyable thing. You would eat the food, but you wouldn't enjoy the food. It might even make you sick to your stomach. It might even cause you emotional pain because you're dealing with servers that are jerky, or just the environment that is not conducive to conversation and community and relationship building. Well, public school can be like that, where your kids are in a setting being taught by overworked, underpaid, overstressed educators that are being forced to teach things that they are not passionate about, and they're forced to concentrate on things that don't really help build your child up for success, but rather help them check off boxes. And they're surrounded by situations that are more and more detrimental to the wealth and well-being of your child. You know, public school can be an amazing journey. Your kids may have an amazing set of teachers and be surrounded by kids that really care, that love to learn, that they have all the resources at their fingertips, and that the administrators of the school see the value of sewing into the individual kids versus test scores. But that's not often the case. What's often the case is that these schools they're overcrowded, the teachers are overworked, and there is this need to push towards teaching to the test because kids are testing worse and worse as things go by. It's because the system is broken. It's not because your kids are broken. It's not because the teachers are broken. It's because they're not given the freedom to be like Miss Frizzle from the Magic School Bus and to bring delight in learning to the hearts of the kids in their classroom. And so you're finding that the really creative, wonderful teachers that you want your kids to sit at tables with are leaving the public school system because their hands are tied. They're not able to control their classrooms because they're not allowed to give consequences to children when they're out of control. They're in situations where parents are not involved, all that stuff. So why homeschool? Well, you might be completely and totally overwhelmed at the idea of homeschooling because you can't imagine teaching all the stuff that they do in the public school system. Well, I'm here to tell you, after 25 years of teaching and homeschooling and mentoring kids and watching them succeed and soar in life, that you don't need to teach all the stuff they teach in school. You don't have to follow all the curriculum. You need to step back and see the undercurrent, the undergoals. The goal is that your kids know their basic math facts inside and out, all the arithmetic stuff, the add, subtract, multiply, divide, percentages, measuring, all that stuff, decimals, the stuff that they need to function in life. Some of your kids will be like my son Sam, and they will grow to be mathematicians that then will hunger and thirst for things like calculus and trigonometry and differentials, which is calculus. So they'll hunger for things higher math, but most kids won't. In language, you want your kids to love to read, not to be burdened and squelched because all they do is pick apart stories. And you don't want them to pick apart language so much that they fall out of love with language. Side note, story, my family does this thing called birthday competitions, where the birthday person sends a prompt of some sort, and then everybody in the family has 24 hours to complete the task, and then the birthday person gets to choose the winner. And it's for bragging rights only. Sometimes there's a little prize, but it's usually just for bragging rights. Well, the last birthday challenge was by one of my kids, and he gave a poetry challenge where you had to write a poem about you and your personality, and it had all these rules. You couldn't use AI, you couldn't copy anything, it had to be at least 4 verses long, and it had to be all in it. And at first everyone went, okay. And then everybody wrote poems, and they are amazing. These homeschool kids that never really did formal lessons on poetry and language and vocabulary and even spelling are able to weave together these beautiful pieces of poetry because they fell in love with learning. They were marinated with excellent literature. They understand the power of the written and spoken word, and they're able to communicate clearly with a pen. It's fantastic. So when you're looking at your kids and you're thinking about homeschool, you don't think about, or you shouldn't get tripped up on which curriculum and what are the 5,000 things my kids need to learn. Instead, if you can step back and you can see the master goals, and I'll encourage you to sign up for and take the 3 stages of homeschool masterclass, because we go over the fundamental stages of homeschool. And if you can get that clear understanding of where your kids land, you'll be like William Wallace in the Braveheart movie, screaming freedom with the face painted blue, and wearing a kilt if you want to wear a kilt. And you'll be able to embrace this life of learning in a way that you never saw as possible. I understand people don't get the whole homeschooling thing. They think that kids are not educated, that they're not socialized, that they're not going to be equipped for life. Heaven forbid, should they have to go out in public, will they be able to find actual clothes and not just their pajamas? It's ridiculous, the arguments against homeschooling, when in fact, homeschoolers that have learned to love to read and to lean into this adventure of life and learning and community and people, they look everyone in the eye eventually. Maybe not when they're 7, but they look people in the eye. They ask intelligent questions. They're hungry for knowledge. They're quick to volunteer. They're quick to help. They see challenges as opportunities to stretch themselves. They're not afraid to say, hey, I don't understand this. Does anybody around here understand this? Because, wow, if you can explain it to me, I would be so grateful. Then they look you in the eye. They say, thank you. It's homeschoolers. Now, this is not true for all homeschoolers. There are some weird homeschoolers out there. There are some people that just don't educate their kids altogether. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about homeschooling through the lens of understanding that you get to customize and create and educate your kids in a way that they learn, and surround them with people and opportunity and resources that will sow into them and help them thrive. Public school kids, oh, my heart breaks for them. There's no brightness in their eye. This is stereotypical of the public schoolers in my neighborhood, the public schoolers in my community, at my church. You look at their eyes and their eyes are dull. They don't care. They're like, get me out of school so that I can go do what I want to do. They don't see a need, fill a need. They're just uninspired. They're just checking off boxes, doing the next thing, going down the conveyor belt, just trying to get through their day so that they can, and then they don't even know what they want to do. They don't even know where they're going. Versus a homeschooler that's sewn into, that is encouraged and strengthened. They're bright-eyed. Oh my gosh, you cannot get them to shut up. They're chit-chatty. They'll talk your ear all all day long. They'll just chatter, chatter, chatter in your ear. You give them materials and they make things. They go outside, they play, they talk to people, they engage with people. They're amazingly creative creatures. Some of them are quiet and quirky and awkward. True. I have at least 2 of those. Some of them are extroverted and outgoing. True. I have some of those too. And some of them, you couldn't pick them out of the crowd as far as their personality goes. Were they homeschooled? Were they not homeschooled? You can't tell. Homeschool is just one of the ways that you can bring up your kids and that you can train them up. And in today's culture, when the public school system's broken, where teachers are not appreciated, where they're not paid well, where they're not given the resources, where they're not given the helpers in the classroom to help them actually serve and teach the kids, to have, field trips and experiments and materials that are necessary in order to bring learning to life. That's not a place, that's not a restaurant that I want to eat with my family. My family's blessed to be able to be out in the community a lot. And my husband, bless his heart, takes us out to eat often. But there are places that we will never go again because the service is so bad, because the food is so bad, because it's so loud that you can't hear yourself think. Public school for us is like that. It's become this place of noise and clutter and chaos. In our district, it's also a place where you're not always sure that your kids are safe. All of my kids, when they've been to either charter schools or public schools, have been subject to lockdowns because of actual threats that are close by, where the kids need to duck and cover and hide and lock behind things. It's like, no, we're not going to do that anymore. And so public school versus homeschool. Are we against public school? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I thrived in public school. I loved it. I had amazing teachers and amazing opportunities and amazing friends. But it's just not the same anymore. Are we against different opportunities for different families to educate their kids? Absolutely not. You do you. You do what's best for you. By golly gosh darn it, don't put your kids in a box. Don't put my kids in a box. And let's get to this place where you and I can be friends, whether or not your kids are in public school or my kids are homeschooled, whether or not you vote this way or I vote that way, whether you believe this or whether you believe that, whether you eat meat or you don't eat meat. This society that boxes each other and isolates each other, it's just not the way it should be. And as homeschoolers, we have the opportunity to actually train our kids in a way that they are a valuable piece of society, a wheel in this machine that makes life worth living. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So anyway, that's kind of my little, I'm waiting for my son hopefully to pass his driving test and get ready to launch into this next part of life. And he's weird. Yeah, he's weird because he loves to work out. He loves to exercise. He loves to help. He loves to organize. He's the first to show up, the last to leave. He's funny. He scoops me up and dances me around the kitchen just because. He still calls me mama. And he said, I'll never stop calling you mama because I'm secure in myself. He's talented. He's artistic. He's literate. Even though he didn't read till he was 10, he's a poet. He's a writer. He works with all sorts of mediums, and he will go on to conquer this life because of the opportunities that he's had in order to lean into the things that were important to him. And we wrapped his education around it. So homeschool, what are your thoughts? I would love to hear you. And sign up for the 3 stages of homeschool masterclass, and I will see you later. And I'll see my son. Bye.